The following is a presentation of Project Independence and WCWP. Project Independence is the Aging in Place initiative of the town of North Hempstead.
Welcome to Project Independence and You.
Welcome back to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio. I'm your host, Rebecca Miller, along with our co-host, Otto Lohse, and show producer, Kristina Lew. We are talking to the mother and daughter team, Mildred and Gayle Kirschenbaum. It's so great to have you both on here. I want to talk a little bit about how proud of each other you must be.
I'll tell you something better. We didn't get off to a good start. Not at all. Gayle, we're a numbers family, and here we had this little artist that if I gave her a coloring book, she didn't scribble. In the skirt, she made flowers and bows and things like that. But Gayle, I'm gonna, go quickly on him. Gayle forgave me, and I apologized to her.
When?
And doesn't matter when. And then from there on in, I said, we're like an old married couple. She could call me, and if I get annoyed, I hang up on her mid-sentence. And
I think they froze.
They froze, yeah.
Oh, did they freeze?
So we're talking
finished.
with Gayle and
They're
Mildred
back. They're back.
Kirschenbaum,
They're-
and they're back. We had a little frozen moment.
Oh, okay. So no one heard that?
Well, we heard, about how she apologized to you, and you said to her when, and she said kind of never mind when, and
Okay.
then we froze.
I am. And we have a wonderful relationship now. You know what? I would rather go on vacation with her than anyone else.
Aw.
Oh.
We're easygoing.
Well, we're both pretty adventurous. And I don't know, I was born with obviously, as she likes to say, and somebody in my movie, one of the psychologists said, you could call the film a misfit, because she essentially said I was a misfit for my family. Because I came in, and I do say, I start the film off and the poster says it, do you ever feel like you were born into the wrong family? So even though I was the youngest in my family, I came in very intuitive, very super sensitive, as most creative people are. We're very sensitive and curious. And she didn't know what to do with me. They all didn't know what to do with me. So there was, trying to mold me into what I was not. And anyway, there was a lot of conflict, abuse, and it was
Verbal abuse.
well, there was also physical abuse, but anyway, I ended up leaving home pretty young with the encouragement of a social worker. And I went to university very young. It was the end of my 16th year. And I was 200 miles away. I went up to Binghamton, and it was the best thing I did. So I was not coming home, because my childhood, I was living in a state of fight or flight, because there was so much rage targeted at me. I never knew, it was irrational rage. So I never knew what was going to trigger it. And so you're always sort of on guard, and I couldn't concentrate. I remember I felt like I had imposter syndrome among my friends, who were all the, hippies and intellectuals and reading all these books. And I would sit to try and read, I think it was Hermann Hesse, and then my mind would wander and I would lose track. And when they're talking about it, I'd sit and pray no one asked me about it, because I couldn't concentrate. But anyway, my turning point, then I left home, which was a great thing for me. And I went to school, which a great school for me. And I was in the art department, and I was, I was building up my own confidence. And then I went off and I had this very wonderful career in the arts. I was a designer, and then I went to LA, and I went into television, making TV.
And won an Emmy.
And then it was like I was all over the media. The New York Times did a huge spread. I was on every talk show with my first indie film. After TV, I started to make my own films. And then I'd go home, and it was like back to childhood. the insults, your nose has to be fixed, your hair. Well, I have very curly hair. This was ironed by my friend for an event, but I have very curly hair. She never liked my curly hair.
It
So,
was up to here and out to there.
I
so
can relate, believe me.
well, lots of criticisms. My hair was getting straightened since I was in 3rd grade. So I guess I was probably middle-aged by the time I said, I can't keep going like this, because every time I went home, it was, and my brothers joined in. They were trained that way and they joined in. They were all professionals, but the bullying continued. And then I said, the only solution is I have to learn how to forgive. I have to start with my mother and then my brothers. And that's when I went on my journey to figure out what are the steps to learning to forgive. Because when you forgive, you do it for yourself. It doesn't mean you forget. We never forget our trauma.
How did you figure that out, Gayle, that you had to
It's
forgive?
so interesting because I wasn't in therapy. Everybody asked me this. I think I am an intuitive person. And I knew when I was in the single digits, I would even say up to 5, because I remember these thoughts when we lived in Queens before we moved to Long Island. And I remember thinking how she, her rage was always at me. And I thought, what happened to mommy when she was little? Like, I always felt you have to go back to someone's childhood. But you ask the questions and you get no answers. I used to ask her brother, Uncle Sonny, what happened in your childhood? What happened to mommy? And you never got answers. And also, she's of the secret generation.
Right.
You don't hang out your dirty laundry. Her mother, my grandmother, used to say, when you laugh, the world laughs with you. When you cry alone. So you don't tell people about your hardships, or if someone got cancer or so. I mean, when I made the movie and I found 3 of her surviving first cousins and put them together, now she's the only one, of course, that's alive. They didn't know she had a sister and her sister died. It's like everything was hush hush. Her sister was a year and a half when she died, and her cousin said, yeah, if someone had cancer, you never told anybody. So of course, I'm the baby boomer generation, and I would say baby boomer women and our mothers, I think that's a very highly charged relationship and a big generation gap, because first of all, we as women, it was commonplace to go to college. It wasn't a big deal for us. Now, our mothers were very bright, but they were raising children in the 40s, 50s, and 60s and into the 70s. And they were, this is it. You're gonna cook and clean and be a mom. And if they needed a few extra bucks, maybe you got a retail job or something. But it wasn't about, let's pursue what are your wishes in life? So there's a lot of jealousy there in that dynamic also. So anyway, I think intuitively, to answer your question, Rebecca, I just figured you have to go back into somebody's past. I felt that from my first memories. And so when I went on this journey, I thought, I need to know what happened to her. And then, I excavated, because her answer is always, I don't know, I don't remember. And she's also the generation, it's the denial generation. You just forget it. You forget the bad stuff and you move on. So it took research. It took digging up genealogy records, finding newspaper clippings like her. She was only 7 when her father had a major fire in this, what did he own? A stable, which housed the animals for Barnum and Bailey. He had a produce business with his brothers, and the Depression happened and they were losing everything. And so he actually ended up attempting suicide, thinking he would get money from that his wife would get the money to support the family, not thinking there was a suicide clause. So by realizing the trauma she went through, I then was able to reframe how I looked at her. So I looked at her as a wounded little girl, not as my mother, because what gets us so upset in life with other people are unfulfilled expectations. So I reframed how I looked at her. So she was now a wounded little girl, and I knew what it felt like to be a wounded little girl. So when her criticisms, you're fat, you're stupid, your hair, your nose, whatever, instead of cowering or getting angry and giving it back, I saw this wounded child who was just unleashing at me because she needed love. Okay. And you know, people who don't get that attention and love can hurt other people. There's an expression, hurt people hurt people. So I just let it fly. It just didn't affect me anymore. And she saw it wasn't having any impact on me. And eventually she stopped, because when people are abusive to other people, they do it to get a reaction. And if you don't get that reaction, you wear them down. You as the, let's say, the victim of the abuse, or you're taking your power back. So it actually ended up, and I was able to feel compassion for her once I saw her as a wounded child. So it completely transformed our relationship, completely.
Gayle, when are you going to write a book about resolving your story? I've read a lot more of it. Is a beautiful way for people to try to handle family conflicts, as opposed to living a life of misery because the family can't talk to each other or whatever. I read that you wound up with family therapy, all these things. That generation that your mother and I, frankly, grew up in was a no-no. Oh no, I don't need any therapy. I'm too strong for that. Facts are that's not true. Everybody needs some counseling, if you will, in terms of how to handle different things that go on within families. And I think, the way you just put this whole thing is great. It's beautiful. And the need for forgiveness, that whole process that people may have to go through is worthy of expanding, really. I've seen so many families go down the tubes where they don't talk. Why don't you talk? I don't know. Uncle Carl did something 30 years ago. I don't even remember what it was anymore. For example, talk.
It's like what I say. You don't go to bed angry because you're angry the first night. You're angry the second. The third, you want a divorce. And the fourth, you don't remember why you're angry.
Yeah.
So don't go to bed angry.
Yeah, no, you're so right, Otto. And it's so sad because at the end of the movie, we made this movie called Look at Us Now, Mother, which
I watched it. Yeah.
Oh, you did? Okay, great. So I don't know if you remember the very end, mom's, it's wrapping up and we're in this therapy session. Mom says, you don't know, I live where so many people don't talk to their children, or the children don't talk to them. And the therapist says, I know. That's her work. But it's terrible. And that's why I became a forgiveness coach. My TED Talk is called No More Drama with Mama. And this is why, I think I would have named the movie had I come up with that before. And that's sort of my movement of forgiveness. But the tools that I teach people, and when I coach them, it's the same steps and tools you could apply to anyone or any situation. But the most important thing is to handle those primary relationships, even if that parent is long gone, because people hang on to this anger. And then the other thing is forgiving yourself, because so many people feel, how do I forgive myself for how I behaved? So I would say, I just want your audience to know this. My mom, and because it's very important, don't ever wait for that other person, the person who's hurt you, ever to acknowledge they hurt you, ever to say they're sorry, because obviously they are incapable of doing it or not ready to do it. And it's like and then don't get angry at them. It's like getting angry at a blind person for not being able to drive a car. They're just not capable. So I forgave her years and years ago before she ever said she did anything wrong. Cut to, now we're making these videos for social media. And I said, okay, Mom, we need one for, it was Yom Kippur. And in the Jewish faith, it's the Day of Atonement. And it's all about forgiveness. So she was stalling and stalling. I said, okay, Mom, why don't you just do one about us? And she surprised me. So she shoots the videos when she's in Florida and I'm not with her. And then she texts them to me and I edit them. And that video, she talks about how she admitted first time in her life at 99 that she was a very harsh and cruel mother to me. And she asked for my forgiveness, but she knows in her heart that I forgave her. And then she says, I now need to forgive myself. And
Wow.
I have to tell you, that little video, the comments under there were unbelievable. People were going on and saying, you are so lucky you got this. I lived my whole life hoping I'd hear this from my mother or father, whoever was their abuser, and they died. And I felt so bad for all these people because emotionally that video had no impact on me because I forgave her ages ago. I didn't need it. She did it, as she says, to cleanse her soul. So yeah, my
How
mission.
about your friend, the religious one, who said it went through the community?
Oh, yeah. I have a friend, she's not on social media at all. And excuse me, she uses WhatsApp. And she sends me this video on WhatsApp. And I'm like, Tova, where'd you get the video? Because I know she's not in social media. And she said it went viral in the religious community.
I find it so interesting, Gail, that you forgave her so long ago, and how it helps you because, forgiveness, they say too, is for yourself. It frees yourself. But the fact that your mom acknowledged it even a little bit later you must have had some joy or some feeling of another level of, I want to say, release. Or, I mean, even though you had forgiven her, the fact that she acknowledged it, even though you knew it was there, must have had some feelings inside for you.
I was happy for her. That's how I felt. I was happy that she was able to get to a place to acknowledge a wrongdoing and share it with the world and to release it from herself. I love her, and it didn't really change. I was proud of her. That's it. I felt very proud of her that she was able to do this and not take it to her grave. And I know, Otto, you read the book, but the last point here, do you mind if I read this? It's a short one. Yeah? It's yes, okay. It's called Forgive Before You Go. Don't go to your grave with regrets. I am lucky. When I was 99 years old, I realized I was a mean mother to Gail. She had already forgiven me many years before, but I refused to admit I had done anything wrong. As the years crept up on me, I felt it was time for me to say I was sorry. I knew Gail had forgiven me, but I had to forgive myself so I could move on. It was time for me to cleanse my soul. Don't put off saying you are sorry until tomorrow. Tomorrow may never come.
We are talking to mother and daughter Mildred and Gayle Kirschenbaum. So you touched a little bit, Mildred. I just heard a little twinge about this. And I know, Otto, everybody prepped up when we talk about planning and lists and organization. And is that kind of how you live? Are you more of an organized person?
Yes, I plan. I make plans to go here or do this or do that. If I die, they'll bury the plans with me. That's all. You can't not make any plans. And I happen to be very fortunate that I'm not a lonely person. I live alone, but I live in a gated community. And I'm busy Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. No, not Monday. Monday, I'm off.
Monday's your day off? Okay.
Day of rest.
Day for laundry. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday morning. I play mahjong, canasta, bridge, and a game called Pan, which I'm sure you didn't hear of. It started in the hula houses of the West Coast.
Right, because we're East Coast. That's right. That's why
We don't have our houses here.
And it's a high-end game, and we love it. And Saturday morning, I play bridge from 10 to 12, and the four of us go straight down to the bar, and we have Bloody Marys for lunch.
Sign me
I
up.
like it.
Yeah.
I like it. Christina's like taking
Yeah.
notes.
I'm booking
Well,
my
I-
flight.
I also
No,
read
she'll
about
take you out for happy hour. She's the queen of
Oh.
happy hour.
And I know we're
My
happy.
language.
vodka and tonic. Vodka and tonic with the water on the side.
Yeah, but vodka and tonic is a medicinal drink. Because vodka is alcohol, they use it in surgery. Tonic they use for leg cramps, so it's a medicinal drink.
You're right. So that's a good thing, right?
Right.
Mildred, that needs to go in your next book.
You have to make plans.
Do you make lists? Because I know Otto and
Well,
Kristina like to make lists.
Now I'm inhibited. And I'll tell you why.
You are?
Yes. When I go to the airline, I own the travel agency for 30 years. So I know my way inside now. And there's a format where you have to put in the client's name, you know, the one who's flying. You have to put in whether they're male or female and birthday. And according to IATA, it's 2 digits for the month, 2 digits for the day, and 2 digits for the year. So I check in, I'm going home tomorrow and I'm allowing myself a half hour because they look at 23 and they say, you come up as an unescorted minor. And they're holding my passport. And I don't care if this goes all over the world because it's the truth. It has gone all over the world. They don't know how to correct it. The Asian there looks at it, asks the Asian next to her, calls the supervisor, who then has to literally escort me to the gate through security.
As in a stroller?
They have diapers waiting.
They don't know how to correct this thing. Now, when I say I'm inhibited now by going somewhere, I said to Gayle, I will go anywhere in this world, but I have to cruise back because I will get stuck at the airport with this. Imagine getting stuck in a place like Korea or somewhere where they don't, or Mexico.
We'll read about you in the newspaper.
Yeah, they don't know how to interpret it.
Right, right.
You know, you said
I'm
something,
too old to get stuck in these places.
So when she
you know,
told
one
me
of the
this,
things that I've read that struck me is a lot of people, when they get older, like I wear hearing aids, all right?
I don't.
Urge people to wear hearing aids because if you can't hear, you know, you can't really communicate.
Correct.
You do things that are, you're willing to take along, you go on a scooter on a cruise, you know, as opposed to not going, you'll take whatever you can to allow yourself to do something. And a lot of
Absolutely. I
seniors
read the
fight that.
story.
You know, they don't want to use a walker. They don't want to use a scooter. They don't want to get hearing aids. So what do? They don't do anything. You know,
It's their loss.
you should take advantage of whatever you can
Right.
to enable you to do things.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you're a great example.
Yeah.
If
We've
you
gone
can't fly, you'll take a cruise. I think that's a pretty good option.
How to
right?
come back.
yeah, that's true. So this aviation glitch we made of when she told me, and she was so funny. She goes, and I'm reliving my second childhood. I said, Mom, that's a good video. Make that video. And we put it out and it got a lot of attention from people who are in the IT security field saying, yes, we know this is a problem. It could be from Y2K or even before. And now, yeah, it's just been picked up all over the media. So I'm praying that her little video, because it's not just her, it's throughout aviation. So I'm just praying it's a big fix that they fix it because people are living, so they don't have an excuse, living to 3 digits and flying.
It's throughout every airline in the country, in the world. The same format.
I can't imagine that you're the first person to be in this scenario, but
Not the first person, because I've heard from people on the, with the comments, oh, when I took my grandmother, this happened. But the first one to put it out there,
Right.
and then People Magazine, I don't know, she's been on like 3 different news stations now. So it's getting picked up by the media, and we hope that they'll kick into action. And I know it's a big fix, but it's time to work on it.
I'm
Yeah.
glad you're doing that, because when I get to that category, it'll all.
You'll
take
get
care of
stuck.
You'll get
stuck.
So Otto, is it personal
And
to ask
I could bet you
what?
$1 to your penny. I'm leaving tomorrow. I'll get stuck at the airport. I allow another half hour to check in.
I'm going to remember, I'm going to say, Mildred fixed this problem for me when I'm 100. I'm working my way, but I'm not there.
Great.
You know, it's interesting because with Project Independence, we kind of represent and serve people 60 and older. And of course, with all the baby boomers turning 65, 10,000 a day, and people living a lot longer. So that's the true silver tsunami. So, and there's just a lot of things we don't know about centenarians who are, living well. We really don't know. So this is something very interesting, because I'm sure it's not just the airlines that have this kind of year issue. There might be other, I don't know, travel things, but I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of different things, but learning this is an issue is really good for Project Independence. We do have a lot of people who are centenarians. We have 90-year-olds driving as well, which we really didn't have. We talk a lot about when I was a kid, very, very unusual for a friend to have a grandparent, even in their 90s. It was like a really big deal. And now people are living longer and driving and aging in place in their homes where they want to be. So it's so great to talk to you, Mildred, because there's a lot we don't know about this, genre of an age group. This age, we've never before had so many people in their 90s and hundreds.
Can I add something? I think that's really important. So she is alone. I am there a lot. I spend a lot of time. But one thing that really helped in her staying independent and me not being there all the time is the cameras. We put in cameras all throughout the house. After she broke her shoulder, she felt very vulnerable. So we put cameras in. And I have to tell you, that came very handy, because in June of 2020, during COVID, I got out of New York City and just went up to the Adirondacks. And she told me she had stomach problems, which is not uncommon for her. And in the morning, I went to call her and I said, let me just look on, because it's an app on the phone. You can see all the rooms. Let me just see how she's doing, because I don't want to wake her if she's asleep. And I saw she was on the ground.
That was before I learned how to get up.
Yeah, well, this is all but this led to it. She has hard floors throughout her house.
Every floor in my house is tiled.
Right, but due to the fact that she was stuck, I communicated through the phone. You could talk, and then I got somebody in who had the key to the house and lifted her up. She actually ended up in the hospital the next day with acute diverticulitis, and I got down from the mountains and spent a year with her. So, and then it was during that time we got a PT or OT person in and said, we need you to train her, go throughout this house. It's a little house.
Repetitious and redundant.
So
I
one of the things we did in the kitchen, when I looked at her kitchen, is I had bought a floor mat in front of the sink, and they're cushioned. And so the thing is scooting on your butt to a place where there's a cushion
for your
knees, and there's something above you that you can grab to yank yourself up. So so most rooms there are pillows, and in the kitchen there's that mat. So that gives confidence to her if she falls, which is really important.
No, that's
and I also I wear one of these things. Help, I fell. What? I get it where I live in my maintenance. I get the alarm system. I get I get many things, and I get one of these things. You pay $85 or $89, and
It's an alert
it's an
that
alert.
you could push.
But it's only
Excellent.
good. It's only good around the house.
Mhm.
So Gail said to me, "What are you going to do when you get to a shopping center and you're full?" I said, "The first thing they'll do is take my watch. Then they'll call 911, and that's it."
Do you actually have a smartwatch?
No, she has a fancy watch. That's why she said.
Okay, so she draws the line at
car.
that. But it's great, a smart
Well,
home.
You know, one of the things I'm hearing also is that you haven't gone scot-free as far as some health stuff goes. You broke your shoulder, you had diverticulitis, you have other little things I read about. So
Yeah, well, I
between
broke my
time-
shoulder, but the diverticulitis, you have to be lucky in life. You really do also.
Mhm.
I was lucky. I had an infectious disease doctor who treated me like I was 39, not 90. And
That's-
he didn't do the surgery. He treated me medically and got me out of it. I have a friend who had the same exact thing. And by the way, they did a colostomy, and then she had to go back and they had to reverse it.
Right.
So you have to be lucky with doctors.
Definitely.
And I'm not a pill taker. When doctor told me my cholesterol is high, I said, "Don't give me a statin drug. What could I do to lower it?" And I lowered it. So when I go to
By diet.
by diet. So when I go to the doctor now, the nurse says to me, if I go to a new doctor, nurse says, "Miss Kirschenbaum, what's your medication?" And I gave him. I take 2 pills a day. One is a baby aspirin, and the other is a low dose for pressure. So what do you think they answer me? "You don't really understand what I'm saying to you." I said, "Let's get this straight. Do you speak English?" I said, "So do I. What I tell you, that's all I take."
You know what's important about what you're doing is a lot of older people complain that they feel invisible. All right.
Mhm.
You're not allowing yourself to be invisible, which is a good thing. You have to act like you really are still here,
She owns the room.
Yeah.
Yes.
She has her
like
posse.
all of a sudden I tell my grandchildren, and they've heard this story before, when they're like 16, and I tell them, I said, "Do you realize I was 16 once? And do you think I've learned anything between 16 and 87? I've learned a few things." So, you try to make the point that, just because you're older doesn't mean you got dumber,
Yeah.
So what's in your future, Mildred? What's going to happen in 2024?
I don't know. Maybe we'll take a little cruise.
She likes to cruise, and they put her on the stage when we cruised with Oceana. They put her on the stage, and they flock to her session to get all her secrets about longevity. What do you eat? What do you everything? They want to know it all.
What do
And
you
And my advice to seniors are,
Yes.
don't feel when you go to the doctor, you have to walk out with a handful of prescriptions. It's not necessary. Because medicines could play havoc with your soul. Really do.
Well, I also am a firm believer of the mental health, the mind, body, spirit. It is really so important. I mean, my mother, this is my year, I turned 70. She's turning 101. I lost my older brother. And before he passed, she used to say there was no cancer in the family. He had a very stressed life. My other brother is sick now with something else. So I think the mental health is so important. And that's why, I go back to my forgiveness, because we have to work on our mental health no matter what age we are. And the other thing, I have written a lot about longevity. I write for something for the Ethel for ARP, and there's a lot of research projects on it. And community is very important, not being isolated. And she's got community. And of course, at this point in her life, all her friends are either my age or 10 years older.
It has been a pleasure to have you both on, and I know Kristina is going to have you back in some way, maybe a chat, maybe in person someday. It was wonderful to have you. Thank you for sharing such personal stories and all that you've done. Mildred and Gayle Kirschenbaum, thanks for talking with us today. We'd also like to thank everybody who was listening and joining us today. You're listening to Project Independence and You on LIU Public Radio.